Yo, what is up guys, Ghost here, welcome back to Stormgate Central, but in today's video we are going to be taking a look at Battle Aces. So if you guys are anything like I am, you've probably got this game on your radar as well. It's a very different RTS experience. It's being created of course by Uncapped Games, which is headed up by David Kim. He's the senior game director there, and of course he was the lead multiplayer designer for StarCraft 2. And the main premise of Battle Aces is that it trims certain RTS elements away, like base building and SimCity, and then it simplifies other ones like expanding, teching, and macro, and instead it concentrates on the tactics, the strategy, and the micro that we all love from RTS. So I've been lucky enough to get a beta key for the game. I've been giving it a go, and today really what I want to talk about is, is there some beauty in the simplicity of Battle Aces here? Is it fun, or is it too undemanding and simply too simplistic for the RTS crowd? So first of all, clearly this game is going for a new crowd. I think it's really trying to do with RTSs what the Dota mod did with MOBA games. If you look at those games, basically what they did is cut away all of the base building, completely got rid of that component of RTS, they got rid of all of the SimCity and all of that stuff, and instead they focused on unit control, spellcasting, the item system from Warcraft 3, and they really doubled down on that and made one of the most popular genres ever. So there could definitely be something to Battle Aces here. I will tell you guys, I've been having a lot of fun playing the game so far, but there are things I like about it, and there are things that I don't think are so good about it as well, so I thought we could explore some of those things here in the video. Before we do though, don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you guys do enjoy the content here on the channel. Not only will I be keeping an eye on Battle Aces, but of course there's going to be a bunch of Stormgate content coming once the game releases on the 13th of August or either on the 30th of July if you're a backer or you've purchased one of the early access packs. And as always guys, thank you so much for the support. Okay, so before we get into the core meat of the video here, I thought we should jump in game and show you guys how the unit deck works. So you can basically think of this as a deck of cards that you're going to be playing with. There are no factions in this game, there are just the different units that you can pick from. So the way this works is that these first two units here are going to be your core units. These are the units that you will be able to build at the start of the game, and it's generally good to have one ground unit and then one unit that is able to shoot air as well. Then the top row here is going to be your Foundry Tech. Now, Foundry Tech is basically like your factory units from StarCraft. On the bottom row here, we have Starforge Tech, and once again, this is going to be more like Starport, so flying units and things of that nature. Now, the difference between the slots vertically here is that these two are for your basic Foundry Tech, and this is for your basic Starforge Tech. So you start off with these two units, you then have to choose to tech either to Foundry or you tech to Starforge. And once you tech to either of these, you can then tech again to get access to the tier 3 units. So again, if you want to go and get the advanced Starforge unit, you have to first get to the Starforge one here, and the same thing goes with the Foundry. And these advanced units, of course, as you can expect from tier 3, are going to be, very robust, very well armored, and do a lot of damage. The last two slots here, these are somewhat of a flex slot. The top one is for either a regular Foundry unit or an advanced Foundry unit, and the bottom one, either regular Starforge or advanced Starforge. So whilst there are no factions to differentiate players in this game, there are still a bunch of units. You can see here a lot of them are locked, and they are unlocked via this currency called war credits. Now don't worry, it's not pay to win or anything like that. These are in-game credits that you earn by playing the game, which, can be a good thing and a bad thing. Sometimes it does limit your deck, and you come up against somebody who's got everything unlocked and they've got, let's say, one of the more meta decks. But the more you play the game, the more you can unlock these units and sort of try out new things. But yeah, for the most part, you're only going to have a couple of things unlocked for each slot. So at the moment, for the Foundry unit, I can go with the Ballista, which does splash damage on ground. Same thing here with the Swift Shocker, but this is kind of like a Hellion. It runs around really quickly. Or you can go with the King Crab, which has, very high damage and also very high armor. You're going to notice the stats for each unit here. We've just got these bars with a rating of 1 to 5. So we've got health, damage, speed, and range. I guess they've done this to just keep it simple for people who aren't used to RTS, but I would like for you to be able to click, for example, this information button here and see some more detailed information about those stats. I think that would be nice. So what I think Battle Aces does really well is it gets you straight into the action, and I suppose it trims a lot of the fat of RTS depending on whether you like fat or not. That may be a good or a bad thing. So it's going to cost you 400 of each of the resources. So the red one is the primary resource. It's going to gather a little bit faster than the blue one, which is the secondary resource. With 400 of each, you can either build an expansion, or you can tech to foundry units, or you can tech to Starforge units, and once you've gotten either of those, you can then tech to Advanced Foundry or Starforge units with another 400. So basically, it's very easy to remember these numbers, and all you have to do to expand is hit the Z key on your keyboard. It will automatically choose the placement of this expansion. They always go in the same order, and as you can see there, it starts to construct the workers automatically. So that's what I've chosen to do in this particular game here. We have both expanded right off the bat with our initial 400 of each resource, and now I've gotten a little two-pronged attack going here with some of the basic crabs. So I've got 3 crabs going up to his natural expansion and 3 going to the main, just to try and put on a little bit of pressure. And whilst that's happening, I'm going to try and bank another 400 of each resource, and then as soon as I have that, I'm going to go to the foundry tech, and I'm going to start to try to push into king crabs. So what you can really see from already the way this game works is that it's all about the strategy, it's all about the tactics, and of course the micro. Yes, lots of the units in the game do have abilities such as blink, recall, and other things like that. And really, it just does away with, all of the base building element. Those decisions are still there. You are going to have to decide, do I want to spend my resources on an expansion, which is going to take time to build workers and actually, give a return on that investment? Do you want to spend those resources on teching to get better units than your opponent? And which tech route do you want to go down? Or maybe if you see that your opponent decides to expand at the start of a game, or he puts a lot of resources into tech, you can just spam out a bunch of the early core units and possibly even overwhelm him. And right here you can see my king crabs coming in. These do splash damage. They have insane armor. It looks like he's also gone for king crabs here. And he's decided to go for a third. I haven't gone for a third. So I've basically put all of my resources here into a big attack on his third to try and punish that, hopefully take down the third and, make him waste those resources. You can see the workers just now coming online, so he's only really starting to benefit from this expansion right now. So the quicker I kill this, the more this is going to punish him. You can kill the workers, of course, by the way, and he actually just completely quits the game and leaves there. So there's a little example of what a game looks like, and one of the things you're going to notice is that it was extremely short. There is a timer at the top of the screen, which is only 10 minutes in length, and I think this really is one of the strengths of Battle Aces. If you want to sit down and play some Stormgate or some StarCraft and you go in a rank 1v1 match, that game could potentially take 30, 40, or even more minutes to complete. So if you've only got, let's say, 10 or 20 minutes, you're not going to sit down and go and boot up StarCraft and play a game, right? You're more likely to head onto Reddit or just kind of kill your time doing something else. But Battle Aces, you can literally have 10 games in the space of like half an hour. Most of my games here down at like the lowest ends of the Bronze League have only been 2 or 3 minute games. You pretty much go for some sort of a strategy, and usually, more often than not, that strategy is either going to win you the game or it's going to lose you the game. And that also makes losing feel better because you haven't invested all of this time, building your base, strategizing, and then you finally get your attack up and running, and then you fail, and you're like, oh man, what a waste of time. I didn't even win the game. Here, it doesn't really, it's kind of like no harm, no foul, right? Yeah, you lose the game, you maybe lose a bit of rank, but you just jump straight into another game, and you're straight into expanding, you're straight into teching, you're straight into getting units out on the battlefield and having some fun microing around. So short and sweet action that gets you straight in there. It's incredibly simple. I also really like the aesthetic of the game. I think it looks beautiful. I think it looks very polished for this being a beta test. And it's the sort of game that you can play with only 15 minutes to spare. Now, clearly, this is not going to be a game that replaces RTS games that we have come to know, such as Age of Empires, StarCraft, Stormgate. Those players who are looking for a proper, let's call it RTS experience, a core RTS experience, You're not really going to find that here. If you enjoy base building, if you enjoy SimCity, then I think Battle Aces could be a turn-off for a lot of people. I think this is the kind of game you're going to play alongside another regular Core RTS. It's not something that's going to replace those games for you, but I think this definitely could do for the scene what, you know, League of Legends and Dota did with the MOBA genre. But to get into some of the things that I didn't really like about the game, one of them is that there really isn't a whole lot of diversity. Much of the time, you're going to be playing against opponents that have a lot of the same units that you do, because there are no factions in this game. So maybe this is going to improve over time as people start to unlock more units, but inevitably, just like in every game out there, we're going to end up with meta decks, right, where this is the best deck, and then this deck number 2 is the deck that counters deck number 1, and everybody's going to end up using the same units in this game. It kind of feels like you're always playing a mirror matchup, which I know most people don't generally enjoy as much from RTS games. Also, due to the way that the game works, and it's all about the units, and it's all about the micro, there are certain units in this game that have been extremely problematic when the build first released. The mortars, for example, which were basically the siege tanks of this game that you could use to defend your expansions or attack your enemies, were completely just insanely powerful. Every single person was running the mortar, and so it felt like every single game just became like mortar versus mortar. They have now fixed that. They were pretty quick leaping in there and adding a balance patch to kind of nerf the mortar a little bit. But yeah, certain units being overpowered is definitely a bit of a concern of mine. You're also playing against a lot of AI opponents, so up until you get into, I think, the Bronze League, you only play AI opponents, and the game doesn't tell you this at all. I didn't realize this at first. I only realized, having played proper opponents, when they, you know, boot up an expansion right off the bat, you will be able to tell when it's an AI player very easily, because they will only get their expansion maybe like 15 seconds into the game, giving you a bit of an advantage, and they pretty much just like idle with their units at their main base until you attack them. It's kind of weird though that it doesn't inform you that you are playing against the AI. They all have like seemingly real names, and even in the Bronze League, I was only getting a real opponent every other game. However, as you do start to climb up the ranks, once I got into Silver and started going beyond that, I did find that I was encountering more proper players than AI players, so maybe it's just something that they want to have in the game there to ease players into there, give them the opportunity to try out different unit compositions and decks and that sort of thing. Another thing I lightly touched on earlier is the idea of unlockable units, the fact that you only have access to certain units and your opponent may well have every single unit unlocked in the game and have access to decks that you can't even dream of. And this was definitely the case for the mortar. I was coming up against lots of players who had the mortar unlocked. I unfortunately didn't have it unlocked. I chose to put my starting currency into another unit, and I really felt like I was at a disadvantage because the mortar was, I think it's undeniable, the best unit in the game. I didn't have it, and everybody else did. So, you know, I think that's something that could possibly be exploited in the future. But on the other hand, it's also a reason to keep playing the game, right? You want to keep accruing that currency so that you can unlock new units, and this of course means that going into the future, Uncat games are going to be able to add even more units to the game. This game is going to be free to play, right? So I'm assuming they're going to have some sort of currency. I don't think they're going to make the units like pay to win or anything, but they're probably going to have skins and cosmetics that you can buy in game for your units. And I think the last thing for me is that there is a possibility that whilst, you know, I'm having a lot of fun playing the game right now, it might get a little bit stale with time. It could just be a little bit too simplistic. They could have trimmed a little bit too much of the fat off of the RTS genre, that there aren't as many decisions to make in this game. For example, when you place an expansion in an RTS game, there are lots of things to consider, right? You have to think about where you want to place the example, where's the building placement, the Sim City, and whilst that expansion is building, it could get attacked and you could have to cancel it. The workers could get killed there. There are so many different decisions that go into just that one facet of an RTS game, and this game is completely doing away with all of them. So, you know, the more things you take away from the game, yes, maybe beauty does lie in simplicity, but you also, it's a fine line, right? You don't want to make it too simple whereby the game ends up evolving into too simple of a meta and everyone just does the same thing and gets bored with the game. But overall, I've been having a lot of fun playing the game. Every time, whether I lose or I win, I'm hitting that 1v1 button again and jumping straight into the next match. It is very addictive at the moment, and I will definitely be keeping an eye on this title in the future. But guys, let me know what you think about Battle Aces. Have you gotten access to the beta? Have you had chance to jump in and try it for yourself? Or even if you haven't and you've maybe been watching some streamers play the game, let me know your thoughts on it down below. As always guys, thank you for watching the video today. Have a good one, and I'll see you next time.